What's up, guys? It is SE and Scrappy. I think episode 5, 6, we're in that range, but we're getting there. But I'm Lucas Da Silva, the Scrappy and SE and Scrappy. And of course, here with us, Jason Fulmore, the SE of SE and Scrappy.
Yeah, man. How have things been?
Man, it's been fun and lots of cool stuff going on for both of us. Obviously, getting ready for my first couple practices at Seckinger, the Don Da Silva Memorial Duels in 2 or so weeks, which I'm buzzing about. Shout out my guy who prints my gear for me. He's getting everything in time, trophies and all that jazz. And when we talk about some cool stuff going on, let's start off with this. You were down this weekend at the Florida Wrestling Hall of Fame, the inaugural induction ceremony. Talk about how that was for a little bit for us.
Yeah, so actually I just got back from Osceola where they inducted, let's see, I think 7 individuals. And, you know, it's like we talked about it on last week's show. It's like a who's who. And I don't know how you pick, those 7 individuals. I mean, 3 Olympians in the group, Glenn Goodman, who was the first 4-timer, wrestled at the University of Oklahoma. You had Eric Grajales. I mean, you just had so much talent in the room. And then the Legacy Award was given to Sam McWoodson. Coach McWoodson has been around forever. And, it was just a great class. And I think one of the inductees said it, and I don't remember in the speech, but basically said, or maybe it wasn't one of the inductees. I don't know if it was in the inductee or Bob Walker, who's the president and founder. But basically he said, there won't be a better class. Like this class coming in is just unbelievably good because you're packing 50 years, 60 years into one class because they started wrestling in 1965. So, man, I'll tell you what, some just outstanding wrestlers and some great speeches.
So that was actually, that kind of leads into my first question for you. When you look at a lot of Hall of Fames, the first class is always hollowed and it's always this kind of like, oh, that first class. Do you kind of agree with that sentiment? This first class, there's not going to be one to match.
There's a lot of really talented wrestlers in it that were not in this first class. Like a Chris Bono wasn't in the class, a Dustin D'Annunzio wasn't in the class. 5-timers, wrestlers, because in Florida you can have 5-timers, weren't part of this class. But I don't know how you top a class that includes 3 Olympians, NCAA champion, All-Americans. I mean,
it'd be tough.
I just don't see how you. I don't see how you beat it.
So kind of piggyback off that, you talked about the speeches. If you can walk us through a moment or two, is there any kind of, let's say, comical moments that were in those speeches that stick out to you with your reaction? I'm imagining there was.
Yeah. So there were, I think they did a really good job. They weren't given a ton of time, and they did a really good job of thanking the people who had an impact for them, who were impactful in their kind of progression in the sport and so on and so forth. But, they each of them, kind of had a few inside jokes to tell. Certainly there were some sentimental moments where Glenn Goodman talked about his daughters being his greatest achievement, and really he's the assistant coach. And one of the funniest stories was he actually told a story where his wife, he was wrestling in, I think, the 1991 or 1992.
That's my wife, Ann. A little wrestling story. All in good fun, of course. We're early in our marriage. It was 1991, and I was in the finals of the World Team Trials. The matches go best of 3, and I lost the first match. Matter of fact, it sort of got worked, got beat pretty badly. And I went and sat on the bleachers not 15 seconds after losing. She comes and sits next to me, and she says, and it always starts with and she says, all you try is an inside trip move. Everybody knows that's what you're going to try. You're going to have to do something different. It was brutal. But what I came to learn is for the next 33 years, Ann was going to be there right by my side to let me know what I'm doing wrong and to suggest the correct course of action. But all kidding aside, Ann is the cornerstone of our family. And without a cornerstone, the whole foundation falls apart. She's been my partner in everything. She ran the Florida Pride Wrestling Camp for 30 years. She ran our event company for 20 years. She's built her family one day at a time with love and compassion and my example. She's my partner on the pontoon boat, and I couldn't do life without her. So I think Ann deserves to be in a Hall of Fame for guiding me through life for all these years. And with that, I'd like to dedicate and share this honor tonight with my wife, Ann.
It was just a priceless moment that I was super happy that Glenn shared with the entire crowd. You know, we all laughed, and it was just, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And then I guess the last one, that when you asked me and kind of put me on the spot with Georgia, I kind of want to do the same thing here in a way.
Okay.
Is there someone that you think was left out of this first group that you think should have got the nod?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Chris Bono, you know,
I say we can't put 20 people in a class, obviously. So you know,
right.
yeah.
I think Chris Bono certainly is right there at the top of that list. I already mentioned Destin D'Annunzio, who wrestled at Harvard, and so on and so forth. The thing that's the most interesting to me is how they'll do, like, the criteria. Like, let's say we have a 5-timer, like a Fox Baldwin, right? Who was just absolutely dominant in high school. But then he didn't really go on and wrestle in college. You know, he didn't have anything after that point in time. Will they? You have to be as successful in high school and college, or, you know, and then the other last thing I would say is that there are plenty of individuals. Every single one of them that were inducted were Division I wrestlers, and at that level. And there are some super talented NAIA, Division II, Division III wrestlers that I think will be on there in the future.
Of course. Now that seems to be the case, that, you know, when you do these first kinds of lists, of course, the D1 guys and the ones that went the more major programs are going to get the early nods, which makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. It was a fun weekend though, and it was so fun to see a lot of different people that I haven't seen in a long time. In fact, one of the coaches that Don Hodling, who introduced or was there for Sam Hazewinkle, and I hadn't seen Sam since, forever, and I haven't seen Don since 2001 or 2002. So it was a lot of fun. It was just it was nice to see a bunch of different people. So, yeah.
So you mentioned Sam Hazewinkle, obviously an Olympian in his own right in 2012. That brings us to the point. It's lock and hand season, and lock and hand season is in full swing this weekend. Alabama and Georgia and Louisiana, shout out Money Team out of Louisiana, who's coming to my event, had their freestyle and Greco state tournaments this weekend. Why don't you start with Alabama? Kind of give us a little bit of what went down in the heart of Dixie.
Yeah, so obviously I wasn't there. I went to Florida for the Florida Wrestling Hall of Fame. I did see all the mats set up by Coach Oliver at Huntington. And I obviously, I'm still interested in all the action. So I've already gone through a bunch of the results and looking at, all the different wrestlers. And, obviously the names that stand out are the names, at the juniors, and Isaiah Poe at 145, who, shout out to Isaiah. He just committed to the UTC, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And I will say, looking down the list of the individuals, Mason Ellis, who was a 2-time All-American last year in Fargo, won 220, Willie Cox, 285. You look down the list, except for down at the low weights, Alabama is really, really good. If this is the team that they bring to duels, starting off with like a Brody Christmas at 120, who I think can make the podium in Fargo, definitely somebody who can make a run. And, I think they're going to have put together a really good team. The interesting thing for me are the 14U and 16Us, because I don't know the names as well. I do know that Stone Phillips out of Vestavia won 120, and he is a super solid 16U. John Stewart is an absolutely awesome. 132. He's one of my top, I think sophomores, and maybe freshman, I think, out of our top freshman list. Kiowa Vines, Bradley Williams is in there. He won. So I'm really interested to see how those 14 and 16Us do this summer, because to me, that's their opportunity to really kind of make a splash. All right. So
Makes sense.
I talked about Bama. I don't know anything that happened to Georgia because I was looking for Bama, but you were on the floor.
I was on the floor at Freestyle and Greco State in Georgia. First off, shout out to North Hall High School doing a great job. And I want to also make a specific moment here. Shout out Jacob Pedraza, man, with Team Wicked, getting that back up and running and doing it well, man. He's getting them to be a well-oiled machine again. And it's great to see. I don't know how many people know this, but me and Jacob Pedraza, great friends who go way back. I'm talking Team Minion at Wildwood at 12 years old, back far. If you know, when they misspelled the word wrestling on the Wildwood Wrestling Tournament hoodies that my aunt still bought for $65. Beyond that, so quick shout out to Wicked and North Hall, and of course Monty and Adams and the whole crew there. But some great matches we got to see. Secoy and Bambinelli banging it. Oh, pause. Going head-to-head against each other in the semis of freestyle and the quarters of Greco. Secoy taking it in Greco. Bambi in freestyle. Seth Larson put on a clinic in freestyle. Had himself a great weekend, as he always does. He's looking up to form. Oh, down at 182 pounds now. Let me tell you something. He looked incredible at 182. I don't know if maybe he got down better, like weight cut wise, if maybe he just did it a little differently, but he looked real good or maybe he just wasn't that big of a 95. Maybe I'm mistaken, but he looked good at 182. And on the girl side of things, Artemis Eaton, Wallen, Greta Garbazovas, who competed, Taylor Sheeser, since I got yelled at by her family about saying that name wrong, so Sheeser, excuse me.
You know what? I appreciate you saying it, because I think I've said it wrong.
No, she looked at me and said, say it like she, sir. She and then sir. I was like, okay, fair enough. But it was some really, really good wrestling. And I'm gonna point out one person as well, also on my team. Kara Dover makes me feel old. Because when I met her, she was like 5 years old and at my knee in height. Now she's almost up to my chin and 12 years old. And I'm like, this isn't right. I remember you barely talking. So that made me feel old. But it was, you had some really
welcome to the party, man. Welcome to the party.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me. Had some really good wrestling. So, and it's exciting to see. And it's exciting to see Greco, where not as many people doing it yet. Naughty, you Georgians. That includes you, Seth Larson, right? That includes you. But the actual level of competition that was going on in Greco, it looks better. The wrestling itself looked better. So that was really cool to see. Shout out to Josiah Boyden, who was on Demon Time from the word go this weekend. Shout out to he was on straight Demon Time from the first round. That was nuts.
Well, but, I mean, that's just a different level. I mean, like, let's be honest.
I know, but he should not be walking free today with what he did to some of those kids. That should be a felony. It should be. Get him off the streets, that menace.
All right. Well,
I'm serious too. You're laughing. I'm serious.
So I know North Carolina had their state tournament or state freestyle and Greco state tournament last weekend. We didn't talk about that, which shame on us. We need to pay attention to South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, all of the others. But it kind of hits us as we're able to, and we're paying attention, and it is what it is, because we are doing a little bit of juggling. So,
I mean, we're still trying to figure out the best way to do a lot of things, guys. So just keep that in mind, that we're, not everybody has everything on track, and that also is a little bit annoying, but we're doing our best. Also, one thing, speaking of that, I make one comment. Seed brackets. There is no good reason Bambinelli and Secoy should have caught each other in the quarters of Greco. I'm leaving it there. Seed these brackets. Beyond that.
Why wouldn't you seed it? I mean, no, hang on. Even if you don't seed it, hang on. Even if you don't seed it, we typically, like USA Wrestling, separates. I mean, this kid is
Just
separated from this
anything.
kid. Right.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
all right. You know what? We're not gonna beat a dead horse. So let's not worry about that.
I said what I had to say. I'm done.
All right.
Just had to get it off my chest.
So this week we transition for the Tricia Saunders and Dave Schultz Award winners to the state of North Carolina. We did reach out to Jeremiah Price. I know Jeremiah's busy. He's got a lot of things going on. We weren't able to get him on the horn to be able to have a conversation with him. But I had an opportunity to talk to Jeulenea Khang of Freedom in North Carolina for a quick interview, and it was a ton of fun. Check it out. All right. I am here with North Carolina Tricia Saunders Award winner, state champion, Jeulenea Khang. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm good. How does it feel not only to win a state title this year, but also to be awarded the Tricia Saunders Award for the state of North Carolina, which you beat out a bunch of really talented girls in North Carolina for?
I feel amazing. Like, that's a really big award.
Yeah. So, it has to do with your, presence on the mat. And I mentioned winning a state title, but we're gonna get to that in a few minutes. And obviously in the classroom. But one aspect of it, just like the Dave Schultz Award, is community service and giving back to your community and things along those lines. I don't know what that is. What did you do? What was submitted as part of yours?
I help out with the youth program at Combat.
Mhm.
Both locations actually. That's what I've always been doing normally.
How much do you like giving back to? So actually, let's lead into this. When did you start wrestling?
I started in the 7th grade.
In the 7th grade. So how does it feel now to be on the opposite side where you're kind of giving back to those future, wrestlers that would come up to high school and stuff like that?
It feels amazing because I was once in their spot and now I'm like above them, and it's just cool to see them grow.
Yeah. So is there anything special that you kind of, I mean, you're a 100-pounder, 106-pounder. You're small, so how do you command the presence and tell them, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to do it.
I make it fun because
Okay.
little kids. So if you don't make it fun, they're not going to listen.
No, that's true. That's true. So going back to 7th grade, what got you into wrestling?
My big brother, Calvin Khang, and my uncle, Tu Tao.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right. So was it something that they, like, you saw them competing and you were like, I want to do that? Or was it encouragement from them? Like, how did all that kind of play out?
It all fall down to trying something out in school because it's middle school year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cross country or wrestling, and I did both. But then I was like really iffy about wrestling because I'm a tiny little girl. At the time, I was like 80 pounds.
Right.
So I was like, it was nerve-wracking, obviously.
Do you remember walking in that first practice and what your thoughts were after practice?
Yes, I was walking in there. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get thrown. I'm gonna get so. Walking out, I was like, that was actually really fun because the coach was very welcoming. He didn't there was no judgment at all. So I was like, okay.
So was this in high school or the middle school, or was this at like club, like Combat, or somewhere else?
It started at the middle school, and then we transitioned to when I started like loving the sport. We started going to clubs, like little clubs around the area,
Mm-hmm.
and then in sophomore year, that's when I transitioned to Combat. Yeah.
So do you remember your first match?
Yes.
All right. Was that in middle school?
Yeah, it was in middle school.
All right. And how did it go? Like what happened?
I had no clue what I was doing, but I just went out there and had fun. That's like one thing that my uncle and my brother Calvin told me to do, just go out there and have fun.
So how have you changed from that 7th grader on the mat, not really knowing anything, if you're being critical and like looking back at yourself this past year, what do you think you've grown the most in the sport of wrestling?
Um, Speaking, like not being so shy
Okay.
and having good relationships with people, because I used to like don't talk to nobody. And I was, like very just independent, just by myself at school. But wrestling really helped me with that.
Got it. That's cool. That's awesome. That's so you went from this shy seventh grader to winning a state title last year. And I don't know if, I mean, maybe it hit you, and maybe I was thinking about it. This was the first year of sanctioned state champions in the state of North Carolina for the girls. And you were the 100 pounder. So you're officially the first ever.
Yeah.
How does that feel to win a state title and kind of, it being sanctioned and having that impact?
It feels awesome. Like, I don't know. There's not much I could say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So when you were going out for that match, because you're wrestling Jamie Hurl, you wrestled several times before, and I know because I was there when you wrestled her at Holy Angels, and that sort of thing. But you had the wins, at least the wins that I saw in the match. Were you confident walking in, or were you like a little nervous walking in, or how did it feel like stepping on the mat trying to win that state title?
I was confident because I have everyone there watching me, everybody that helped me throughout this whole journey. So I was like, just go out there, have fun. Like when I first started in seventh grade, first match, have fun. So that,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So did I ask you who has been the most influential person?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know how you got into it, but who was off the mat? Who has been the most influential person off the mat?
My brother.
Your
My big
brother.
Yeah.
Why?
Because we went through everything together. Our whole wrestling journey was together.
Okay.
We came together. So
That's awesome. Okay. All right. So you are now getting ready to, I don't know, have you graduated yet? We're talking on May 14th. You're probably very close to graduation, right?
yeah, June 9th.
June 9th. So a little ways away. You got finals in front of you still, or no, not really?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So you're getting ready to
obviously
finish up your senior year, and then the next step is Mount Olive. So why Mount Olive? Why is that the place? Why did you pick there?
I solely picked it because it was closer to home and closer to everybody that's, it's been there with me throughout the whole journey. So, and I love it there. It's small.
It's small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that they've done really well is, like, I think this last year was their first year, right? For the women's program. And they had 3 qualifiers for nationals.
Yeah.
So, are you looking forward to kind of stepping in and ready to go and make your mark that first year on campus?
Yeah, I am. I'm very
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, last question I have for you before we finish up is, how did you find out that you won the award, that you were even nominated for the award?
Cheryl Bernard, she had asked me at the boys states, and I was like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And she goes, just fill it out. I said, okay, fill it out, turn it in. And then I've never heard anything about no updates or nothing at all. So I was like, what about this? Why did I fill out information? Nothing. I had no updates at all. And then eventually she texted me and said, you won. I was like, I did? Cool.
Were you surprised to get the text?
Yes. I was like, oh.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Well, first, I want to say congratulations on winning the award, on winning the state title this past year. And we all in the Southeast want to wish you the best of luck at Mount Olive and your continued career as you get ready to move into college and get ready to compete at the next level.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good one.
You too.
All right. So that was Jeulenea Khang from Freedom, who's going to be wrestling at Mount Olive next year.
Awesome.
Shout out to Mount Olive. They had 3 freshmen make the national level, the national tournament this past year. It was their first year as a program. And I'm telling you right now, Khang is tough. Khang won it at 100 pounds and then almost made the state tournament in the 106-pound boys.
Oh, no, you got to remember, like they, and not only them, you got to remember, they also brought in a couple really big transfers. You know, you bring in a Sam Miller and a Brielle Bibla coming in as well. It lineup is now looks real interesting at UMO next year, that lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm really interested to see how good this team continues to get. I mean, they are all really young. They took some losses, but you know what? They went out and competed against King and some of the best programs around. So, all right,
for sure.
So we're going to end the show with what's going to be a fun segment because Lucas knows some of the things that are going on, but as far as the rules changes, but mostly changes in duels as it relates to Georgia. But we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, well,
first things first, let's start with the low-hanging fruit for everybody else in the Southeast. And that is Georgia last year changed their weights. No one else did. Okay. And this is going to be their first year changing to the new weights. What do you think? How do you think the changing of the weights impacted Georgia wrestling last year?
See, so this is where it's a tough question to answer because we have to understand that a lot of these changes, I don't know how much they matter, and we won't know how much they matter until we get a year or two into it and we see guys start moving and changing the way their bodies are shaped, especially at that upper end where there is no 220 now, it's 215.
Yeah.
And that 5 pounds makes a big difference. So are we going to be seeing more of these 225, 230 guys wrestle heavyweight?
Was it a good change?
I don't know, and I don't necessarily, I can't really give you an answer yet.
Okay.
I'll tell you this, I went the weights that it was last year. 6, 13, 20, 26, 32, 38, 45, 52, 60, 70, 82, 95, 220, 285. I didn't switch my tournament's weights over yet. For this exact reason, I knew that everybody in the folk style season, and if you look at the state tournament in freestyle and Greco, with all age groups of Georgia, was still 6, 13, 20, all the way up. So that's where I'm at. So I'm going to wait for everybody to make the change, and I'll make the change, but I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see over time.
All right. So next question is, in Alabama, Tennessee, and North Carolina, but not in Florida and Georgia, right? The girls have 12 weights in Alabama, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and they have 14 in Florida and Georgia.
Yeah.
And we were all given the opportunity to have 12 weights or 13 weights or 14 weights. Minnesota picked 13 weights, but we, I think, all in the Southeast picked 14 weights for the weight classes down here. Is it a big deal that some states are doing girls at 12 and some are having 14, especially when you start getting into, let's see, 100, 107, 114, and down at the 14 weights, it's 100, 105, 110, 115.
Yeah. So I think the only time it becomes a major point of contention per se is when we start going to these big national events. So let me ask you a question. What weight is Super 32 going to use? And I say this to the guys too. What's Super 32 going to do? You look on your shirt. What's the Grappler Fall Classic going to do?
Right.
What's Flow Nationals going to do? And I think that makes a big difference because, again, if we're really looking to compete with the rest of the country, is it helpful for a kid who wrestles 175 in the regular season to have to make a choice to go 82 or 70, make that extra 5 pound drop for these big events? Is that beneficial?
Well, I would assume now that it's every state has had to adopt or whatever, that the big national tournaments will adopt as well. But that's an assumption. And then the other question is that 13 weights versus 14 weights, I mean, if you go to a big national tournament in Minnesota, I mean, is that going to be a different set of weight classes? I mean,
there's a lot of questions that I still feel. It's one of those things where we're going to have to wait until the NFHS makes a decision and then see who follows it. Like, I almost wonder if it's going to be one of these games we're playing where we're kind of just going to be waiting until.
I'm with you. All right. So welcome to the new weight classes for the rest of the Southeast. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. It'll be good for me because now I won't have to remember the old weights anymore. But for the girls, I will have to figure something out. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. For ranking, how are we going to rank with different? Oh, I didn't even think about that. But you know what? Number one weight class, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, done. Go with. Honestly, it's like at that point, like.
All right. Now I got another question for you as it relates to this. And this is what has happened in the state of Tennessee in years past. Okay. As far as I know, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. All right. And this is a scuttlebutt about what might be happening in other states. And that is in Tennessee, a girl has to make a determination of whether she is going to be wrestle girls or wrestle boys. She can't go back and forth. Right? We just talked about Jeulenea Khang in North Carolina winning the girls' state tournament. And because it was before the boys' postseason, she entered into the 106, almost made the state tournament in the boys' side of things. Should all the states adopt what Tennessee has done and make the girls make a choice? Or should it be open and let it continue the way it is?
So I see two sides of this. For the development of girls wrestling, I think it'd be good for them to compete against boys during the regular season. However, I think for the sake of equality and fairness, everyone should be allowed to wrestle one postseason. So I have no issue with a girl wrestling a regular season boys tournament, but I think it should be for the way it would be in Georgia. Your area dual and area individual. You have to choose one. That would be, again, thing for
what about duels? What, like say May May's doesn't really have a girls team at Lassiter, right? So they're not going to really compete for the girls. Should she be able to slot in for the boys dual state tournament?
I'm very okay with that. I'm okay with that because the state denied certain schools joining together to make a conjoined team for the girls, for their state, for the girls' state duels. I'm okay with May, for example, or Genevieve, or these pillars. They're like, okay, I'm the only girl on my team. I'm going to wrestle for the boys' team for duels and the girls for individual. But they shouldn't be allowed to wrestle in both. It should be one or the other for individual and one for duels. Again, that's my thought on the matter.
All right. So now we're going to transition to something that Florida did last year that no one else did, as far as I know, and no one does. And that is in the postseason, they did consies 2-2-2. It was not 1-2-2 as it's always been, and for everyone. They went 2 for the first period, 2 for the second period, 2 for the third period in their state series. Now, according to the wrestling minutes from March 15th in the state of Florida, that won't happen again this coming year. They're taking it back away. What are your thoughts on 1-2-2 versus 2-2-2?
I hate 1-2-2 with a burning, fiery passion. I hate it. Because I'm always going to want more wrestling, always, no matter the situation. Now, I completely understand it for the sake of time. Completely get it. It extends tournaments. I get it. But if you're asking me my opinion, you want my opinion? I want us to see who the real men are. Let's wrestle 3-3-3. That's my opinion that no one likes. So I shut up. But
I like college. 3-2-2 would work for me.
No, I want 3-3-3 in college and in high school. Let's really see who's got it. Let's see who's got a gas tank on them. But beyond that, I'm off that. I'm off that.
But feasibility wise, you can't do it, right?
Jason, what I said. Okay, shut up.
I know.
It's my opinion.
But okay, but 2-2-2, I will say it did extend time. It did. I mean, the state tournament was longer.
Oh no, it absolutely was. I remember this.
But it wasn't. Was it so much longer that I mean, you wrestled the entire year 2-2-2.
I mean, listen, this is if it was up to me, I'm never gonna say take away time from wrestling tournaments. Ever.
Okay.
I'm never gonna say that. So if it was up to me, of course we would wrestle the full length. But this is what people want. If let me ask you this. Because I remember people in Florida yelling about how long the tournament was, certain people. I remember specific chants from what I think started from a drunken group of individuals, let them wrestle, I believe. Or let's just wrestle, or whatever the terminology was. But I mean, I'm always going to say we should go with what the people think, and I have a feeling that no coach was about this. Like, I have a feeling this was kind of just a top-down decision, which I hate in the sport of wrestling, especially because while the guys at the FHSAA are better than the ones at the GHSA, the GHSA, you know, they actually got on the floor and got their hands dirty at the high end and actually did something at the tournament, which I appreciate. I just feel that I feel like that we should do more of, there should be more talks with coaches, more emails, more actual communication of, hey, what do you think? 'Cause at the end of the day, while someone's nap time might be getting ran into, at the end of the day, it's the athletes and coaches who are most affected by this decision.
All right. So we were talking specifically in the state of Florida.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
But I know. But we're tossing out big ideas because, you know, experimenting with rule changes at the state level is kind of what pushes rule changes to happen at
college.
Yeah, or nationally, the NFHS. So one of the things that they have been experimenting with, and it is a rule change this coming year, is 6 matches in. They can wrestle 6 matches in a day. There is no more 5-match limit.
Let us wrestle 10. Let us wrestle 10. No, and I mean that. No. I have a reason for it. I have a reason.
Okay.
And now I know what you're going to say. This is one case. But at 13, 14 years old, I was wrestling 12 matches in a day at tournaments because I double bracket and I get into 6-man round robins, or I get into a 32-man bracket in one and an 8 in the other, 16, and I'd have to wrestle back because I used to be bad. So I used to lose in the first round and wrestle all the way back. I don't think a match limit does anything. I don't think it does. I don't think it makes you safer. And if anything, it extends tournaments. The whole reason the Georgia State tournament was 4 days long for a couple of years was because of the 16-man consolation on the other side having to fit it into the 5-match-a-day rule. And the whole reason it happened. And timing, obviously, because they didn't want to be wrestling until 1 a.m., even though we almost did that anyways a couple of times. I don't think a match limit does anything. I genuinely don't. Because I've seen kids get injured in the first period of their first match in a day. So you can't tell.
Right, but if you're wrestling your 5th match, I mean, it is hard, right? I mean, I look at Liam Davis at NHSCA's this past year, who lost in the first round, and I think he wrestled like 10 matches or 11 matches on day 2. Now, he did it, but he was not nearly as good in his 10th match as he was in the first match of that day.
Well, so okay, let's play this game. Is anybody?
No, but he didn't have to wrestle somebody who had to wrestle 10 matches. He might have had to only wrestle somebody who had 2 matches that day.
Yes, but I still don't. Let me ask you this.
Don't lose early, is what you're telling me.
Well, first off, don't lose early. But beyond that, let's also play this game for a second. I see more injury times early at tournaments than late. Because I feel like the longer you wrestle, your body gets warmed up. And okay, so this is where you want to talk about timing. What I think kills wrestlers more is long breaks. So this is where we come into when you have to holy hell, or whatever they're calling holy angels from this past year, where guys were sitting 2 hours. I'm saying the colloquial name, what people have been calling it kind of jokingly. But the 2-hour breaks in between matches. I think you're more likely to see more injuries from scenarios like that than you would someone wrestling 6, 7 matches. Especially when let's also make one other point. In tournaments in high school, or guys wrestling 7 matches in a day. Be honest now, how many tournaments?
I'm sorry. Say that again. They can't wrestle
How
7
many?
matches in a day.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
How many?
So how many tournaments are even big enough where guys will be
Oh.
wrestling 6, 7?
Not many at all.
That's my whole point. Like,
Yeah.
I almost feel like that this rule, all it does is it hinders tournament directors, because now they have to extend their tournaments out if they want to do a big event. Like at the knockout, we went back. Or when we talked about this, I kind of looked at it. I only saw 2 or 3 guys that wrestled 7 matches at all in total.
Yeah.
Like, I only saw it a couple of times.
You know what? That's a great question. We need to look into that.
It's just something
that's a really good question, because I think you're right. It doesn't happen really all that often.
So I don't, because remember, when you're building a tournament, if there's a scenario where you wrestle more than 5 matches in a day, Kansas City Stampede, the perfect example. The reason that tournament is if you've ever been to the Kansas City Stampede, the reason the consolation side is structured in the way it is so that no one has the ability to wrestle 5 matches in a day. Bracketalistically, like bracket and logistically speaking, like bracketalistics. Is that like like the logistic? Let me rephrase. The logistics of the bracket don't allow that situation to happen.
All right.
That's what I was trying to say.
All right. So you would be a fan then of the other rule change nationally that really is the only other rule change that is really significant, and that is reducing the number of time between matches from 45 to 30.
Yeah, I'm for that, because I feel like where someone gets more in danger is you wrestle, you sweat, you break the lactic acid, and then you stop for a long period and it begins to build back up again. And then you have to try to get re-warmed up. Like we always talk about it, get your first match out during warm-ups. Break that sweat, get the lactic acid broken, and then stay loose. You don't want to stay on your feet the whole time, obviously, but stay loose. Right. You know, if you notice it, I may have been 10 matches out, 8 matches out, but I'd still drop to an occasional bounce, get my stance, just to kind of keep my body still firing those athletic synapses, just so that when I actually did start my warm-up, I was already kind of halfway there. But again, everybody's different. So I know some people that would get done wrestling, cool down, take a nap, wake up, get right back on the mat, and be fine. So everybody's different. But
right. All right. So the last thing, and there's a couple other things we're going to bring up just really quick. But one thing I want to say before I forget to say it, and that is, I looked at the wrestling meeting minutes from March 15th in Florida. I looked for them in Georgia. I didn't really see them in any of the other states. We do have some information on the duels in Georgia, and I'm waiting for a confirmation, but you and I are going to kind of talk about that just briefly. But I want to run through a couple of these other things in Florida, because some of them are relevant to all the states. And that is, number one, all results now have to be on track wrestling in the state of Florida.
Thank God. Yes. Thank God. Makes life easier for everybody. Continue.
Right. So Alabama, North Carolina, and Florida now, 3 of the 6 states, it is required. I don't know why it wouldn't be required in other states, but we'll get to that. All right. A couple of things that were interesting. Roundtable discussions. One of the things the only thing I really want to talk about out of this was they talked about possibility of moving girls wrestling to the fall in Florida. And it said moving girls wrestling to the fall will help the growth of girls wrestling and will have more practice space and event space. Would also increase the number of coaches available for girls wrestling, and officials would not have to be shared with the boys. Weightlifting also overlaps with the female for the wrestling season as well, but it does in the boys as well. So good, bad, ugly.
I'm not mad at the idea. Like, I get the logic to it, but okay, wait a second. Okay, then I have a lot of questions. Does that mean they can't wrestle Super 32?
Yeah, I don't know how they would.
Oh my, yeah, how would they? Oh, okay. Okay. I get the logic. I don't like the execution. So this is again, if we're talking King for a day, I've never understood why you've tried to run their postseasons at the same time. That's something I've never understood.
I mean,
No, I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
I think it's more an issue of like logistics more than time. But I get the logic. I do. Try to have more coaches available. I will say the big one is referees.
Yeah, yeah.
We
And that's where
we saw
it has some legitimacy to it as
no,
far as referees
I
go.
completely get where the logic comes from. Completely makes sense.
I think it would be bad
Oh.
though. I don't think it would be good for participation. I think that it actually would
I think it'd be a moot.
I think it'd be probably really challenging. But
What are other fall sports in high school? Like when's softball and when's women's volleyball?
so what used to happen, or this is what it used to be in Florida, and I don't know any longer.
Yeah.
Volleyball was a fall sport, softball was a spring sport.
Okay, so I feel like the big one you'd run into is volleyball because I know a lot of wrestlers, believe it or not, who do also play volleyball. So that would be one. Softball.
Well, and the other part is that if not everybody adopts it, and only the state of Florida adopts it, they can't wrestle anybody out of state. Like,
Oh yeah, no, there'd be no competitions like in the. Oh yeah, that's a weird one. Oh, so
you would have to change all the girls to be a fall sport, not just
Yeah.
one state. That would be
Yeah,
really
nah.
that would be a real challenge. All right.
I think it's. I mean, look, if it was up to me, wrestling as a whole would be a second semester sport, but that's neither here nor there. That's a different discussion for another day.
It
I
is.
think starting January, end in May. Like if it was me, they just move it.
So in the future, we're going to talk about this last one, but we're not going to talk about this today. And that was they proposed so in state of Florida, the top 4 advance from regionals to state. Okay. And the way it works is you've got a regional champ, because there's 4 regions. Unlike Georgia,
like
where you have
bracket,
sections, right?
How every quad had a region champ, region runner up, region third, region fourth.
Right.
So and was it formatted?
So it was a formula for how, but the formula changed based upon what weight class it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's concern because I think pretty much everybody knows the formula. And because everybody knows the formula, there are times when you don't want to take third because you're going to be put in a particular quarter. You'd rather take fourth. And what happens in that situation is you have people injuring, defaulting, or whatever. So they had proposed a 4th versus 5th place from another region play in at the state tournament. It would actually be a 20-man bracket at the state tournament. I just want you to think about it. I don't really want to get into the conversation, but think about that moving forward. Would that work? And would that be good? And then the other question.
Okay, go. All right, wait a second.
No,
okay.
Go ahead.
Weren't we just talking that the tournament was too long?
Yeah.
Do you want to add another round of matches? What? Just okay. God, I love wrestling sometimes.
It's crazy
sometimes.
All right, so let's go to the state of Georgia and let's finish on the state duels. As I understand it, what's going to happen is there aren't going to be area duels or sectional duels, right? Area duels will take place during the course of the year. So the weekend of area duels and the weekend of sectional duels will now be open so you can get wrestling, you can wrestle another tournament or whatever. And the top 2 out of the area or region, which is the first level for everybody who's not from the state of Georgia, will then advance, and we will now have a 16-team dual state bracket. Is that how you understand it?
That's how I've been explained. I'm gonna give you 2 of these. Oh, I actually like this. This is the first time the GHSA has brought something to my attention that I actually like the idea of. Yes, because my thing is, I love individual dual meets. I do. I love the dual meet environment, and it's more money for the schools because I feel like if you sell concessions, you do it the right way, you could draw some extra money, not thousands of dollars, but you could draw some extra money to your program by doing this. And as well, I have one caveat question. What do you do with the girls that have 30-team regions? That is my only question.
It's a good question.
That's my only one. But for the guys, thumbs up. I like this. Yes. Do duels during season, because then it opens up tournaments like the Gator Brawl down in Weewit-Hitchcock that happens during sectional duels that I actually think is a great tournament for some of these Southern Georgia teams that I'd love to see them go down there. The problem is during sectional duels. I think Gator Brawl would be a really nice tournament to bring them to if they're on the more developmental side of things. You can't do that. I don't mind this, actually. Big fan of this. Good, good on you. Decision makers. For the first time that I've been doing these videos with Jason, thumbs up. Seal of approval.
Now, I will say, that means some areas, finishing top 2 is going to be hard. I mean...
But I think it should.
I'm not hating on it. I'm not saying it's bad. In fact, I love the ability to have those 2 weekends open so that teams can continue instead of, the thing that always kind of got on my nerves about the duels was what Buford wrestled Mill Creek, Buford wrestled Mill Creek, Buford wrestled Mill Creek. Then they were off. Then Buford wrestled Mill Creek at state tournament. I mean, you might see the same freaking kids in the same duel over and over again.
Do you want to know where this gets me going? And we're like, oh, that would be awesome. Imagine a scenario. It's the last week of the duel season. Colquitt, Lowndes, state spot on the line. Like those kinds of things where the moment gets bigger because of the ramifications of the matches you wrestle. You're doing that at home. You don't have to go to a big arena. You do that in your backyard. The idea of that Collins Hill Mountain View duel with a state spot on the line. So many storylines throughout the season. In some of these regions where there's 7, 8 teams, you're battling through your 3-2 and you have to win out and hope you get some help, or you control your own destiny if you're in first place of the region. And maybe this is, because I'm me, imagine you get a team who's presumed better. Maybe they drop a duel early and now you've put yourself in the driver's seat of your region and you control your own destiny and you have to see them at home. Like the idea of this is fascinating. So I love it. I'm with it.
Okay.
Now I don't like it for some of the regions like East Coweta, who because they're 7A, they have to have a long drive everywhere. It's a long home road everywhere. But beyond that, that's my one little Beyond that, I actually like the idea.
All right. So that is this week's show. There's been a lot. This might be a future show. So I'm just going to plant this in. Yeah, plant the seed for you. And we can kind of think about this. There's been a lot of coaching movement, like Gassman to Jackson County, or Josh Stanley up at Lake Norman in North Carolina moving to Davie County. Or I've seen others that are moving around.
Jeff Reagan out of Woodward.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, Reagan. And I don't know where he's headed or whatever. But those are the types of things. In the future, we're going to have to talk about some of these coaching changes and how that's going to have an impact in this coming year. Does that work?
And then are we going to talk about the high school wrestling transfer portal?
Yeah.
I had to say that. I had to say that to make certain people mad. I had to.
All right. So, it's really important. If you guys know of the Tennessee meeting minutes and South Carolina and North Carolina, we would love to have those conversations. Yes, Florida
please.
posts there and that sort of thing. We've obviously talked about Georgia. So that's this week's show. Tune in a week from today, and you and I will break down a few more things. That works,
sir.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
Man. Peace.